Hey, what's up? Good morning. This is Iron Sharpens Iron. I'm Matt, and I have a challenge for you today. And that challenge today is every day, every moment of every day, we have a decision to make. And that decision is, are we going to take the path of least resistance? Now, what do I mean by that? Well, this idea came to me as I was taking my younger son to school this morning. And on the way to school, I passed two different scenarios that were very similar, but the people in those scenarios made very different choices. You see, when I first started going to school, I saw, there's a Rayleigh's store on one side of the street, and on the opposite side of the street there's a retirement home, a nursing home, where there's almost always a group of people out in front, no matter what the temperature is. There's a group of older people in wheelchairs out in front, just kind of enjoying the day. As long as it's not raining or snowing, they're outside enjoying the sun. And I saw it as I drove by. I had to stop and wait, and I almost kind of got a little frustrated because one of these older people decided they wanted to go across the street. I'm assuming they were going to the store. There's a coffee shop over there. There's several different stores over there. They're going across the street for some reason, and my initial reaction was, great, I have to wait for this person. But as I watched, I saw this person. They were sitting in a wheelchair, barely, I don't know if they can walk or not. I'm assuming they can't, but they were using their feet to kind of walk themselves across the street instead of using their arms to push. When they push the wheels, but they were going across the street fairly slowly. And at first I was kind of frustrated. They crossed the street. I went along with my day and took my son to school. I came up to another crosswalk, and a stop sign, and I saw this lady drive out of an apartment complex in and across the street where I was in front of me, and then she pulled into a blocked off entrance of what's leading into what will eventually be either more apartments or a housing complex, a housing development. And the street's blocked off, so she couldn't go past the roadblock. But she literally drove across the street. She parked in this little cutout where there's going to be a continuation of a street, and she got out of the car. And I saw this middle aged. She's probably about my age, probably in her 40s, slightly heavy set. She got out of the driver's seat. She went to the back door of her SUV, brand new SUV, and she opened the back door, and a dog jumped out of the car and then started running around this open area where there's lots of dirt and bushes and shrubs, and it just hasn't been developed at all yet. There's areas where they've done the land development. They're going to start building very soon. This is an area that hasn't been developed at all. It's just complete shrubs, the high desert shrubs. And her dog started running around. She got back into the driver's seat of the car, and I could tell the car was running because I could see the condensation and the exhaust coming out. And she just sat there in the car while she watched her dog run around. I took my son to school, dropped him off, and on the way back, the lady was still there. So I decided to ask her, a little bit about the dog and the apartment complex where she lived. And I asked her, why she brought her dog there. And she said she brought her dog there to take her dog for a walk. And I just kind of chatted with her for a little bit, and then I went back home and went about my day, ran some errands. And as I was running these errands, I began to think about this. I watched a lady literally drive out of an apartment complex. Now, what happened before this, I don't know. I'm assuming, this is maybe a big assumption, but I'm assuming she lived in the apartment complex. I never really asked her. She said that she brought her dog out to take her dog for a walk. And her idea of taking her dog for a walk was literally driving across the street, letting her dog run around while she sat in the car. And I couldn't help but think that she was, overweight, and even walking down the street, even walking across the street. Now, maybe she was scared because it's 2 lanes in each direction with the center divider, and it's 4 lanes total. It's a big street. It's busy in the morning when there's people going to work and taking their kids to school. Maybe she's a little scared. I don't know. But I do know that every day she has this choice. Not every day that she decides to take her dog for a walk, she has this choice. She can literally walk across the street and put in some effort and walk around with her dog. Maybe she's going to be uncomfortable because the temperature's high, the temperature's low, whatever. She's going to be slightly uncomfortable in that moment, but it takes some sort of effort. And I can't help but think about what positive changes that would have in her life on a regular daily basis if she were to do this every single day. And I couldn't help but think about the difference between her taking the path of least resistance, literally getting in her car, driving literally across 4 lanes of traffic and parking and letting her dog out of the vehicle while she sat in the car and watched while her dog ran around and chased, rabbits and squirrels and birds or whatever. That's literally taking the path of least resistance. Now, that's human nature in and of itself all the time. We don't always, but unless we have a good reason not to, our natural inclination is to take the path of least resistance. That's just an evolutionary thing. That's just a biological thing. It's human nature to conserve energy because there was a time in our history where food was scarce, where, our shelter was scarce, where going out to an undeveloped area where there's lots of shrubs, maybe there were predators lurking there. That's not today, but that's still ingrained in our DNA from way back when. But that highlights the scarcity mindset that many of us live in today. And we're not talking about finances, but it kind of goes into the same thing. But compare that path of least resistance decision to the scenario where the older gentleman was using his own legs when he could barely walk to cross the street while he was in a wheelchair. And I've seen this gentleman out there many times before. I've never talked to him. I don't know anything about him other than I see him in front of a nursing home in a wheelchair, and I see him cross the street. It's not the first time I've seen him cross the street. But he could very easily have had somebody from the nursing home push him across the street. Or he could have decided he didn't want to go across the street for whatever reason. Whatever it was that he wanted on the other side of the street, whether it was just exercise or whether it was just a coffee, whatever. He could have decided in that moment that it wasn't worth the effort, that he would just forego that pleasure until things got easier. And I couldn't help but think about these two things. And this is a constant thing that many of us face multiple times a day, every day of our lives, whether we're at work, whether we're starting a business, whether we're balancing a checkbook. It doesn't matter what it is that we're doing on a daily basis. If we work for somebody else or if we work for ourselves, if it's a relationship with somebody else, a spouse, a wife, a husband, a friend, whatever, countless times in one day, every single day, we face a decision where we can decide, are we taking the path of least resistance? Are we doing what's easy and convenient at the cost or at the sacrifice of possibly losing weight or developing ourselves, learning a new skill, challenging ourselves? You see, in those moments where things are easy, in those moments where times are easy, where it's smooth sailing, where we're comfortable, we survive, but we're never going to thrive in those moments. Now, I'm not saying work yourself to the bone every single day, because there are times where we need to take breaks. There are times where we need to rest and recover. But if we are constantly choosing the path of least resistance, if we are constantly living that life of comfort and ease, then we will never grow. And why would we? Why would we grow in those moments where we're not being stretched? There's absolutely no reason to. But see, that's where many of us get stuck. And that's where I got stuck for many years of my life. That's where, I have a phrase I like to say is your comfort zone is where your dreams die. It's where your hopes die. It's where your ambitions die. Because when you're not being challenged, when you're not being stretched, when you're not being pushed or driven, you become comfortable. And when you're comfortable, you become complacent. And that's when your hopes and your dreams become stagnant. And like I've mentioned before, the analogy of the Dead Sea. When you become stagnant, things in you die. Your hopes die, your dreams die, your ambitions die, your motivation dies. And that's when things get really, really dangerous. That is the most dangerous place to be. Because if you're not careful in those moments, then your character begins to become eroded and starts to die. Your inner strengths, the things that made you who you are, that can face those tough times, that begins to die. So that's my challenge for you today. When you're faced with that decision, doesn't matter how big or small that decision is, when you have a choice of the path of least resistance or putting in a little bit of extra effort, there's a phrase in the Bible, there's a scripture in the Bible where Jesus says, if somebody asks you to walk a mile with him, go with him 2. Always put in that extra mile. Always put in that extra effort, especially in a business sense. If you're a business owner, if you do some sort of customer service where you impact somebody, always put in that extra value, just because that will bring that customer back. That will bring that person back, whether it's your business or somebody else's business. Do the extra mile thing, do the extra thing, because that will have lasting impact. That will have lasting impression. Don't continually take the path of least resistance just because it's easy. Because I guarantee you, it might be easy now, but you're going to start trading short-term discomfort for long-term dysfunction. So challenge yourself. That's my message today. Challenge yourself. Get out of your comfort zone. Go the extra mile. Put in that little bit of extra effort and stop taking the path of least resistance. So until next time, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it. If you did, share this video with a friend, a coworker, a loved one, somebody you know who maybe this is a nice subtle way that you can help challenge them and say, hey, you've been doing things the easy way. You've been taking the path of least resistance. Or maybe it's, you're telling them, I've taken the path of least resistance and I want you to keep me accountable, so I stop doing that. I want you to challenge me. I want you to be the iron that sharpens me, to hold me accountable, so I stop doing things the easy way. So until next time, I hope you got something out of it. Share this video. Hit the like, hit the subscribe button if you got something out of this. Until next time, until tomorrow, I will see you later. Thank you for joining me on Iron Sharpens Iron.